Please welcome everybody, round of applause to our panelists. So directly to my left, we've got Jordan Bonomo, who's the Senior Program Manager of Asset and Capital Management for Sustainability at NYCHA. We've got Vincent Romanin, CEO and founder at Gradient. Nan McKie, Resident Association Board Member at Woodside Houses. And David Leezer, who's an Engineering Manager of Retail AC and Innovations at Midea. So it's a great project that we're going to be talking about. I think it was mentioned before, one of the previous panels. So we're happy to jump in. I'll just start, since this is a day talking about piloting. I'm going to talk about a program that we at OTI launched in October. So the Office of Technology and Innovation. And so we launched a program called the Smart City Testbed. Brianna Garcia on the team is here as well. And so this was really a program that we launched to try to address some of the needs, not only from within government, city agencies interested in incorporating emerging technologies, but also trying to create a bit of a front door for startups and other companies, academic researchers who are interested in demonstrating their technologies. So we launched in October. We're really focused on public realm and physical space related technologies. And so we have an open application that's available for any company to apply. There's startups in the audience. More than welcome to go to our website, nyc.gov/testbed, for more information on the program. And we really try to act as a matchmaker between companies that are creating urban technology innovations with the stakeholders within city government that would be interested in utilizing those innovations. And so within the program, we're looking to. It's a little bit different from the program that we'll talk about with NYCHA, where we're really focusing on shorter scale emerging technologies. So looking at like 6 to 9 months from start to finish, really like test driving things that haven't been looked at before in the city. And so we have that component. We're also bringing public engagement into it. So as we're piloting, we're partnering with the 3 different public library systems to meet residents, talk about the technologies that are being implemented, and hearing from residents about what they think about the technologies, how positive or negative impact New Yorkers' lives. And so we'll use that to inform how we think about those technologies moving forward outside of the context of a short-term sort of small pilot program, and also creating evaluations that we can share across different city agencies to sort of spread that knowledge around. So we're really excited for that program, for the response that we've gotten so far, and looking forward, if anybody in the audience who's looking to bring their technology to New York City government, we're happy to speak with you about it. So now moving on to the panel here, I just wanted to start with Jordan to talk a bit about NYCHA, New York City Housing Authority, what their scope is, and just sort of set the stage a bit for the environment and context for which this program was employed.
All right, thanks. My name is Jordan. I'm with the New York City Housing Authority, and we are like a small city within New York City. We have approximately 2,200 buildings in 300 plus developments across the 5 boroughs, about 177,000 apartments, and approximately 1 in 15 New Yorkers is a NYCHA resident. So we're actually larger than Las Vegas and Miami in terms of size, but we're right here within the city. Most of our buildings are older, 70 years, I think, is our oldest building, 75 years. And they haven't really built many new ones since the 80s. So a lot of our building stock and infrastructure is aging rapidly and is in need of a lot of repairs. If you're familiar with some of the capital budget needs of NYCHA. So within that context, my department is in charge of looking forward to a carbon-free future, if you will. And we're mostly focused on electrifying our systems, primarily our heating and hot water. So that's kind of where my department has been spending a lot of their time, and that's where this program kind of takes hold.
Great. Yeah, thank you. And so I think, with that, knowing sort of the context, the scope of NYCHA, we're really lucky to have Nan with us today, who's a resident at Woodside Houses and a member of the resident associations. She knows the community very well. And so from, the resident perspective, we wanted to hear from you, Nan, just to sort of like understand the state of heating and cooling, like how are people heating and cooling their apartments currently, and some of the experience around that before the heat pumps came in, things around control, about thermal comfort in apartments, just sort of set the stage a bit for what the resident experiences before this pilot.
Okay, hello, my name is Nan McKie. I'm from Woodside. Now, sometime before the line, you wouldn't have no heat in one line. So what they're doing now, every room I have their own control to do their own heating and air conditioning. And this way, with the old radiators, the kids were getting burned. You don't have to worry about it with this one. There's a lot of nice things, the way that it cools the room off. And when it was cold, it really heated up the room. So you don't have to buy an extra heater. The elderly people don't have to use their fans. They could use an air conditioner now. The apartments don't have to be that hot.
And so in terms of the current system, everybody's on a steam heat system, right? So you have radiators in the apartment,
yes.
And there's limited control. It's just on or off with the radiators?
Yes, sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. It's according on what building you live in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always have heat. And sometimes, I forgot what I was going to say now. I'm sorry, this is my first time doing this. Okay. What they have, I would really, the rest of the community, they're asking when are they going to get theirs. And I'm asking you the same thing, when am I going to get mine? We have one in the office, but I don't have one in my apartment yet. That's why I said that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think one thing we'll talk about in terms of what the heat pumps can do, which in this case is something that wasn't possible before, which is both heating and cooling. So in terms of residents, not everybody has air conditioning, right? There's a mix of...
Because some of the elderly people, they're afraid they don't have nobody to put it in for them. So this way, everything's in one unit and they don't have to worry about it. They could be hot in the winter or cold in the summer. They can control everything themselves. Nobody else has to do it for them.
If I could just add, cooling, right now, NYCHA as a landlord is required to provide heat and hot water to residents like any landlord in the city. But cooling is not a requirement, so NYCHA does not provide cooling. Residents are responsible, if they want cooling, for purchasing and installing their own air conditioner. Typically, it's a window AC. And then if they do choose to install their own window AC, they get charged an additional monthly surcharge back to NYCHA to offset the added electric use of that equipment. So there's a lot of barriers to supplying cooling to NYCHA residents right now, and that's why roughly 70% of residents, I would say, have at least one AC in their apartment. But it's disproportionately skewed away from folks that can't install one, particularly elderly residents.
Yeah, no, a great point. And yeah, as we're experiencing more heat waves, the need for cooling is become more and more important. So Nan, just one more question in terms of the sort of going into the pilot, but beforehand, can you talk a little bit about some of the feelings or sentiments from residents about going into this? Were there concerns? Were people hopeful? What was the sort of sentiment there?
Okay, at first, everybody was nervous because if you don't know what's going on, you're like, I don't know if I want it or not. But after one person told me, he gave me a hard time. But then when he got it, he came back and apologized to me because he loved it. Yeah, it's very nice. I have to, even if you have a home, you need one of them.
That's a great endorsement. So yeah, I mean, I think in terms of the and we'll get a little bit more of the process as the conversation goes on. But yeah, I mean, I think the point there is, which is normal with change, some amount of trepidation. Is this thing going to, meet my needs and fit into my life in the way that's going to be helpful? So we'll come back and hear more about the residents' experience after the pilot got started. But maybe people are wondering, about what's the actual substance here. So I don't know if we can switch slides so everybody can kind of see what we're talking about. So yeah, these are the units that were installed. And then before we hear from Midea and Gradient, who manufactured and produced these and installed them, want to get a little bit more of the backstory from Jordan here on what this challenge was, some of the precedent in terms of other things that NYCHA has done in the past to kind of make the market. So could you talk a little bit about the sort of refrigerator program in the late 90s, a little bit about the work in 2020 for the split systems before kind of bringing us to the Clean Heat for All challenge?
Sure. So I'll do it a little bit out of chronological order, but we started with piloting some electrification technology that is just off-the-shelf split system products. So we worked with NYCHA and the Mayor's Office of Sustainability at the time to install a split system unit on the roof of a Bronx building, and we did about 7 apartments there. It took about a year of design and DOB permitting and electric load analysis and structural analysis of the roof and ACM testing. And eventually we were able to get into construction, and then COVID hit. So construction went quite slow, as you can imagine. We were in residence apartments for 5 to 7 days each, punching holes through the walls to run copper refrigerant piping from the hallway, where we were bringing from the roof, through the roof, into the hallway, into the apartments, mounting the split system heads, the indoor heads in the bedrooms and living rooms, wiring everything on the roof. The whole construction process took, I'd say 6 months, almost, from start to finish. And we learned a lot on that. Primarily, we learned that if we had to do this 177,000 times, we were not going to finish in my lifetime for sure, but definitely not in time to meet our carbon goals set forth by Local Law 97, which I'm sure folks are familiar with, which is to reduce your carbon emissions by 2050. So we quickly pivoted and started looking for alternative technologies that could maybe eliminate some of the barriers that we were seeing in the field with installation, basically having to get into an occupied apartment 7 times in a row, which is not only difficult for the contractor, but for the resident. It puts them in a tough position if they have to be home for 7 days. They're missing work, they're missing medical appointments, there are all sorts of challenges for that. So we did some research and came across some new products that were packaged, provided heating and cooling, and could be installed without running copper piping and lots of electrical upgrades. Most of that required punching holes through the walls, which we weren't keen on doing either. So what we did was we said, if it can be in this form factor, why can't it just fit through the window like an AC or something? And we basically put together some specifications working with NYCHA and NYPA, the New York Power Authority. That's our utility. And we came up with some specifications for what would be essentially a window-mounted cold climate heat pump that would plug into a standard 120 volt, 15 amp outlet. And we put that out first as an RFI, request for interest, and just to see, maybe there's a product overseas that we don't know about that just hasn't hit the U.S. market yet. We got some interest from manufacturers, and also some manufacturers saying, no, that's impossible. But then, based on the results from that, we thought, okay, how can we, there isn't anything like available off the shelf here or anything coming soon. How can we get manufacturers to develop this without building it ourselves, which was an idea for a day. but we spoke to some folks at NYPA who had been around a lot longer than myself, and they recalled a program in the late 90s that NYCHA had partnered with NYPA on to develop Energy Star refrigerators, some of the first Energy Star refrigerators. And what they did was basically used a purchase agreement, like a sort of golden carrot, I think they called it, program, where they would specify an energy efficient refrigerator that was something like 50% more efficient than the existing refrigerators on the market. And whoever could supply that product at the best price, NYCHA was going to buy something like 20,000 or 200,000 refrigerators over 10 years. So we dug up this program, interviewed the program managers that ran it, who were all like retired in Florida at the point. And they sent us scanned copies of the RFP, and we kind of just reassembled it with these new product specifications and put it out as a similar kind of golden carrot program. If you can build something that meets these performance specs, we will demonstrate it at NYCHA over a certain period of time. And if it meets all of this performance requirements and is in our price point, within our price point, we will buy basically the first 20,000 units. So we put out that RFP in 2021, like December 2021, and we made the award the next summer. It was 3 government agencies working together, so that's why the long timeline there to make the award. But yeah, that's basically where we are now.
Yeah, no, thank you, Jordan. Yeah, I think it's a good point just to kind of highlight the purchasing power of NYCHA and of city government in itself to really, make this market, right? So having 177,000 apartment units that could potentially, utilize a new technology, whether it be refrigerators or heat pumps. There's a scale within city government and the purchasing power to be able to do something like this. And I think it's, a really innovative approach. I think it's also different from, sometimes, at least, even talking about the program that we launched, we don't have the purchasing power behind it. So like the pilots that we run are really sort of educational for city government. We're trying to learn about an emerging technology, but in this case, because you are also the operator and you have the capital budgets, you can not only do a pilot but back that up with a real financial incentive for anybody who's participating. So it's kind of an interesting combination of a call for innovation as well as an RFP that can really lead to benefits for the company. I wanted to pause for just a second because we're talking about heat pumps, and this is probably a smart, knowledgeable crowd. But show of hands if people know what a heat pump is and how it works. Okay, a lot of folks. But I think it would be helpful maybe to, if anybody wants to take it, obviously the manufacturer is something, but maybe let's just take a step back for a moment and just what is a heat pump? What does it do in terms of its, output? I think we talked a little bit heating and cooling, but, how does it work? I know you mentioned specifically cold climate, so I think there's also some thoughts about where heat pumps can work and some of the innovation that's happened in the last couple of years to really make, heat pumps work in cold climates. I think I forget the actual statistic, but in Scandinavia and Finland, places, really cold places, like they're implementing heat pumps, across the board. So if it can work there, it can probably work here. But Vince, do you want to kind of give a little heat pump 101?
Sure, happy to. In my previous life, I was a thermodynamics nerd. I guess I still am. So I'll try not to go too deep. Basically, heat pumps are the only way we can fit electric low carbon heating in our existing grid infrastructure. And the reason is what they do is they don't just generate heat, they pump it, they move it from one place to another. And so if you plug a space heater in your wall, you use 1 unit of energy from the wall and it turns into 1 unit of heat in the room. A heat pump uses the same kind of physics as your air conditioner does, but in the opposite season and in the opposite direction. So it pulls heat from the cold outdoor air and it puts it into the room. So the outside of your air conditioner is hot in summer. It's like dumping a lot of hot air out in the street. Same thing. Heat pump just does that backwards. So even though the air is cold outside in winter, there's still some heat in it. And if you spend electricity, you can pump that heat from the outdoor cold air into your room. What that means is you get, instead of a 1-to-1, 1 unit of energy from the wall, 1 unit of energy in the room, you get 1-to-3 or 1-to-5. And so you're using between 1/3 to 1/5 of electricity of a space heater. And if you do that, you now have enough capacity in your building's electrical system and the grid's capacity to make energy that we can keep all of our buildings warm on electricity, which is a much lower carbon way to do it than fossil fuel fired boilers or any other type of heater.
In the cooling?
It does cooling too, yes. So because it's mostly the same hardware as an AC, there's one valve you put in that lets it point in the opposite direction in other seasons. Almost all of them also do cooling.
And then, maybe you'll talk a bit about this in sort of the gradient approach to this, because I know that you had sort of a mild climate heat pump, and then we're working more specifically. But just back to the point that you made on the energy. I know, Nan, we were talking before, and you mentioned some of the residents, if let's say the heating is inadequate or it's not working, their residents may be implementing space heaters, right? And so, you want to talk a bit about what that was like?
Okay, some of the elderly people, when something goes wrong, they don't report it. Okay, the whole line is down. So they'll go get a space heater. They have a space heater for one room, they have another one for another room. And that's a little dangerous because some of them trip over the wire. Different things happen in life.
Yeah, so, perfect. The space heaters, and I think to your point, less, efficient, right, using the space heaters versus a heat pump technology. So, why don't we turn to you, David, and Vince to sort of talk about this from the vendor perspective. If you can just talk a little bit, your approach to the RFP. I think it'd be interesting to know if these products were already on your roadmap, or these were things that, because of the opportunity that NYCHA presented, it maybe changed a bit about priorities within the company. We can start there.
Yeah. So at Midea, with one of our big things that we love to do is what we call practical innovation. So we started back in 2020 when we launched our Midea U window AC. So just even though it looks complicated, it's a really simple idea of let's just use the window to help be a barrier for sound, help seal up better. And for the window AC, which can kind of also most often has a window shaker, nickname, which, we wanted to kind of get rid of that. So that mindset and that innovation mindset is kind of what we do with all of our products. And then a couple of years later, launched our basically same platform, but a heat pump version, window AC, but it could only go down to 40 just because of the size. With what Vince was talking about, some of the challenges with cold climate and reaching those lower temperatures is you've got to be able to extract that heat out of that 17-degree air, 5-degree air, 0-degree air. And so in order to do that, sometimes the unit has to get bigger. So that's always a challenge when it comes to window ACs and room air conditioners. And so we were going down that path, and then also with our split products. So our team, so I work with retail, which is window AC, portable AC, dehumidifiers, P-tax. But then my counterparts on the split team do single zone split ACs, multi-zone AHUs. And they were going down the cold climate heat pump path, and then working with the DOE's cold climate heat pump challenge, and developing products with that, with the EVOX series product. And hitting those numbers and going down to negative 5F and negative 15F, and hitting those high efficiencies and capacities. So we were able to basically, with our roadmap on the retail side, a product like this, to be honest, wasn't on it. But when the challenge came out, it was like, oh, here's a great opportunity. We knew in the back of our minds, like, one day we wanted to do, and knowing heat pumps were being more popular, and efficiencies growing. And so we knew something was eventually going to happen, but waiting for the right opportunity. And so the Clean Heat for All Challenge was that great opportunity that one of our engineers at the time, who was from New York and then unfortunately passed away, but he championed this project. I think he first found out about it. And just pushed hard, pushed the company, and the company was all on board because it was just an exciting opportunity. And then since then, kind of see it as a springboard of innovation and technology for other products. Okay, PWHP is a start, but where else can we go with this? And then basically sharing that technology and a lot of the innovation we've done on products as a company, and learnings, just in a different form factor.
Great, thanks. And then, same to you, Vince. I know that this was really like the first product that you all were working on. So if you want to just talk a bit about your approach to the RFP, the roadmap. I mean, I think one thing that also, if you want to just talk a little bit about the design, most people might notice that this is different from a typical window AC in that it's sort of hanging over the windowsill, coming down out of the window in a sort of upside down U shape. So it's a little bit different, maybe something also, folks at Woodside Houses had to get used to, because it's, you think about a window unit, you think about a particular type of thing. So if you can just talk a little bit about your approach to the RFP, where this fell on your roadmap.
Sure. So to start, Gradient was founded partially because of the existential threat of climate change. We know that emissions from buildings, from refrigerants in our HVAC systems, from the fossil fuels we burn in our buildings are a major contributor to climate change. But also, we see climate change as a public health problem. We talk a lot about polar bears and ice caps, but ultimately the consequence of climate change is heat burden where people don't have sufficient cooling. It is failing heating systems with changing weather patterns. We've seen that with Hurricane Sandy in New York. And so we see climate change as a public health problem. So we think that part of the challenge of decarbonizing is building more resilient infrastructure where it's needed among frontline communities that are seeing the worst effects of climate change. And so that's where we started. And then when we looked at the built environment, we realized that some of these older multifamily buildings are some of the hardest to retrofit and are not served by many of the existing solutions. We heard a lot of stories like the one Jordan told about the challenges of putting mini splits into older infrastructure, of drilling holes, running copper pipe, et cetera. And so we designed our first product that was alluded to earlier. It was largely the same architecture. It was a moderate climate heat pump. So it just didn't go down to the full New York winter temperatures. It covered a California winter. But the genesis for this product was actually a third thing. Like we looked at frontline communities infrastructure, we looked at emissions, but the third thing is heating and cooling systems are also a very personal and emotional part of people's homes. They're not when they're working. You don't think about it if it's working. If it's not working, you're definitely thinking about it. And so the first thing we did actually as a company is talk to as many residents as possible about their experience with heating and cooling. And we heard a lot of the stories from other folks that Nan mentioned. The main challenge is, I want my window back. I hate not having my window in summer. The heat isn't turned on in winter and I want it to be. I can't control my own heat. It's too hot in winter and I have to open the window. And so we wanted to make sure, we believe that climate-friendly technology will not scale if it's not a fundamentally better product. And these radiators have been in buildings for hundreds of years. So like, how could you not make something better than this 100-year-old infrastructure? So that led to our first product, which was a moderate climate heat pump. It was before folks knew what that word was. We did a lot of user design to figure out how this would change people's interaction with their home comfort, how it would fit into their homes. We then won a grant from the state of California to expand the lower operating temperature of our system so that we could jump from a California winter to a New York winter. And we were working on those technologies when the Clean Heat for All program came out. And I'll also just say, there was talk earlier about how quickly or slowly policy and government agencies sometimes move. And I think it's a little bit relative, right? There is fast for government and there is fast for other things that aren't government. And I know this wasn't entirely a government program, but the Clean Heat for All program it worked as a golden carrot. I think it clearly showed the world, as the largest owner of homes in the U.S., it showed the world like things could be better. It is possible to decarbonize and do it with a focus on public health and people and comfort and do it in a way that was going to be cost effective. And so I think it's been a great program, and we're excited to be part of it.
Great, thank you.
And if I may add,
Oh, yeah.
So with Midea America Research Center, we're based out of Louisville, Kentucky. So the New York environment was totally new to me, being a Kentucky boy, born and raised. And so coming up here, and the aspect of people always have heat, but not having cooling was completely eye-opening. So I think as a manufacturer, being involved with the residents and coming up here and doing consumer research in the city, talking to, the multiple customers, whether it is Nan and the residents, or Jordan and the needs for the building, or with NYCHA and their needs on the infrastructure side, it was very eye-opening. And I think, to Vince's point, this was a great example of a pilot program and a good partnership between private and public sector. And I just kind of want to commemorate that, especially relative to the myths and stuff that were discussed earlier. This was a great example of that partnership and meeting a need, using the industry to meet that need and advance that technology.
Great, thank you. I think that's a wonderful segue into the next year. We would want to just talk a little bit about the user-centered design that was going into this, any conversations, design sessions, or sort of like feedback sessions with residents. I don't know if there's anything, Jordan, that you all did with the residents and setting up, Midea and Gradient to actually, talk through what are the specifications and things like that. A little bit, I guess, what we talked about previously was, controls and not wanting to incorporate like a remote, because those are things to sort of lose, which is challenging. So making sure that all the controls are on the device themselves. So I'll open that to sort of like the whole panel if people want to just sort of share their experience about the any aspects of co-design with residents and trying to understand the requirements and needs and specifications.
Well, I can start by saying that my first 2 years at NYCHA, and still to this day a bit, I worked mostly on our steam systems and optimizing our steam. So I did a lot of projects with installing little orifice plates in the floor valves of steam radiators and putting TRVs on those. Not as exciting, but I was able to talk to residents a lot through doing that work, because it's also in the apartments working on the radiators. And universally, there was a frustration from the residents that they couldn't control the heat and that there were so many imbalances. Steam is just, such a difficult system to balance. This room is always cold. This room is always hot. This room is sometimes cold and sometimes it's hot. There was a lot. It was apparent that not having control of your heating is a serious deficit on a system. And one of the things we were really trying to cure with this. And then secondly, the cooling, going to resident meetings in February at a development and seeing window ACs installed everywhere with like pillows stuck on the side of them to keep the air out was, another. I wouldn't say that, when we were putting together the specifications, we didn't really, organize a group of residents to come and kind of ideate with us about what their needs were really. We sort of just inferred it from a lot of our previous work, going to the sites and doing other projects and seeing just how residents were experiencing their apartments and the conditions and the heating systems and cooling systems that we had. So once we did put the specifications and awarded everything, then we brought the residents in and showed them what it was going to look like and got some feedback from them and started really incorporating them into the pilot. I'll let the manufacturers talk a little bit more about that. But that's kind of how we were able to kind of get an understanding of how the residents were affected by the existing conditions first. And
also there was a demo day where you installed the units at the office. You want to talk about, you brought people in?
Yeah, so there was sort of a phased approach. We made the award, and then we gave something like 6 to 8 months to provide a prototype unit that we could show the residents, and not just the residents, the staff as well, because I had a lot of operations staff that had never seen a heat pump before, so they needed to see something. And we invited each of the manufacturers to come and have kind of an open house day where they installed their prototype unit. I forget if it was working unit, right? Yeah. So it was a working unit, and the residents came in and can kind of like touch and feel it, and I like this color, I wish it was that color, and also it showed that heat does come out of it, right? Because there was still not a lot of understanding of what a heat pump is, that it can actually pull heat from the outside in. So yeah, I think that was really helpful in kind of either expectation setting or just showing the residents that this is kind of what it could look like and allowing them to kind of give some feedback on it.
Yeah, Vince, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I think especially with any piece of infrastructure that's so personal like this, step one is always listen. And so we did that early on before our first product. And when we were selected for the award, we were at the initial kind of announcement and prototype show off where we got to talk to a lot of residents. And then later on, we had an in-apartment demo where we brought residents by and talked to a lot of different folks, got a lot of interesting feedback. I think that we always try to focus on what is the problem we're solving for these residents and for the building owners. And then also, I think the first step is sort of what problems are we solving? What are the challenges that they have? How can we make sure to serve those basic needs? And then I think after that is how can we bring a better, improved experience? There's this excellent, really nerdy architecture book called Thermal Delight in Architecture that makes the point that having our buildings always be 72 degrees is like an interior designer making everything the same shade of blue. There's a lot of feeling you get from fresh air or breezes or warm temperatures or cool temperatures. And the first thing we realized is people really wanted to be able to use their window. And so putting a shelf on top of it where people could put plants and candles was kind of a thing that we found people really connected with. And so we found all of the kind of user interaction and demos and feedback from users to be very helpful and influential in our design.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I mean, with a lot of what Midea does in our product development is consumer research based. So we come up to New York City a lot for window AC consumer research and hearing what the end consumers really want or need out of their products, and using that kind of as our initial library, and then putting that into, and then as well with the spec, it was very clear and explicit on what NYCHA was going after for their customer. And, one instance being wanting to get as much of the window back for the resident, so getting more sunlight in, ability to potentially, have fresh air, so it's not all screwed to the window and everything. So with that aspect and mindset, driving, some of the shape and the design, as well as to what Jordan's saying, right? Having ceiling, so being airtight and thermal, minimizing any thermal losses. So not only just a good product, but a good installation. So a lot of the spec and then the library of consumer research we had initially went into it, but then, coming to that demo day, which I think was, so we kicked off December of 21, and then and then submitted March of 22 was when the submissions were done, and then awarded August of 22, and then I think the demo day was like April of 23, right? So very quick process to develop prototypes, designs, testing, developing new compressors and components, but yeah, hearing all of the feedback on that demo day, like Jordan was saying, but even with the maintenance staff there, them installing it, them touching it, them asking questions about maintenance. How do I get to that filter? How do I get to that pump? How do I do this installation? What's it like to remove it? So hearing their feedback, knowing that we've got multiple customers and people in the process, in addition to the resident, and making sure they're happy with the product and that it's easy to use on their end was a great opportunity. That way we can then make those adjustments. And then too, during the demonstration phase and the pilot portion, going to the residents and the homes and seeing, and then realizing, in addition to what Vince was saying, some residents, their cats are laying on top of them, or they're putting the cat bed on top. So then it's like, okay, we need to add a control lock so the cat's not stepping all over the UI and changing the modes or the temperature, and just learning things along the way like that, and with the feedback that we're hearing from the residents, and making sure that gets into the product where it can. So yeah, it's been a great process.
Great, yeah, and I think a great time to go back to you, Nan, in terms of the resident experience, and also just the idea of just doing this demo day. How is that in terms of the residents? I know we talked a little bit before about kind of coming into this, not knowing what to expect. So I guess before these units were coming into people's actual homes, everybody got a chance to see it in the office first, right? What were some of the initial reactions there?
No, after they seen it and they touched it and everything, they messed with it. Then they learned how to work it, and everybody said that's what they want,
So there was some comfort, I guess, after that initial contact with the heat pump.
You don't have to worry about the heat no more.
Right. Yeah.
Or the air conditioner. You don't have to go out and buy another air conditioner.
And in terms of the installation and sort of how is that, like the communication with NYCHA? Did it take long for people to get their units? What was the sort of process?
It didn't take that long. The whole thing was some people were working and they wouldn't let them in. That was, that stopped everything there. But otherwise, it was fine.
And how long did it take? Do you have a sense for when people were
3 months, 2 months
For installing it?
for the actual installation? Yeah, because I know.
Well, okay. The split system, I said, what did it take? 5 or 7 days?
Yeah.
This took about 2 or 3 hours to do a whole apartment. So it was really fast.
And there was
Once they got going.
multiple units potentially in one apartment.
Yeah, these are all 2-bedroom apartments, and we are putting direct heat in all the bedrooms and living rooms. So bedrooms plus living room, 3.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely, I guess, less invasive in terms of the time that the residents needed to be available, things like that. I mean, one question I had, I don't know if we talked about this previously, but because the unit is going past the windowsill, was there any removal of, a lot of times the steam radiators are underneath the windows. Was that a factor?
Yeah, we had to remove the radiators. That actually took the most time.
Okay. And that was for all of the units, the radiators had to be removed?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And how did people feel about that? Were they happy to have those radiators go?
The radiators. It's gone,
Yeah.
fine. You don't have to worry about getting burned no more.
Yeah.
Or a little kid going playing with it.
Sure.
That was our whole thing with the radiators.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess what's nice here is it's not taking up any additional space. It's just occupying the space that would have been occupied by the radiators previously.
We celebrated the first radiator we decommissioned. It was at NYCHA. I asked Jordan to send me one, but he said it's covered in lead paint, and so I haven't gotten it yet.
We don't know that. But they're also really heavy. It's very tough to ship.
They're very
that.
heavy.
Yeah, I can imagine the shipping bill there. So, Nan, can you talk a little bit about, any of the, after the residents got their units, any sort of positive changes experienced there aside, obviously the control is something, but did you get any other feedback from residents about their experience?
Okay, for some of them, the control, they didn't know how to work them. And then after they found out how to work them, then they wanted to show me how to work them. So it was easy after you find out, If you don't know how to do something and somebody shows you, oh, yeah, I know how to do it. You don't have to come back no more. Bye. That's what I got.
Okay, so people were there was a little bit of a learning curve, I guess,
Yes,
but then
yes.
everybody was excited about it. And then, I mean, one interesting thing that you mentioned was now that, so I guess I should say that there are 36 units that were installed. Is that 36 apartments or 36 heat pumps for each
36
company?
heat pumps for each company.
Okay.
So about 12 apartments per building.
Okay. And then, Nan, what you had mentioned was everybody wants one,
Yes,
right?
everybody wants one, yes.
Yeah, so they're asking you.
Yes.
And you don't have one yet either,
No,
right? So
we have it in the office, but
right.
not in my apartment.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's not really a better recommendation or I guess sort of evaluation than the people that don't have one want one. That's really great to hear.
I think one thing to add to the whole pilot program, and Jordan, correct me if I'm wrong, but the other part of it was all the measurement stuff that NYCHA was doing and having being recorded and what was it called, the E-gauge, and then as manufacturers having the ability to see power usage and all that stuff and how these things are behaving in the environment, but then also talking with residents to what Nan was talking about is like, at first, a lot of people were just treating them like space heaters. They'd turn it on and then turn it off, not really comfortable with it. New technology, there's a little apprehension there. But then as they got comfortable with it, it's like, oh, and when they would turn it on to like 80 something, right? So then you would see all this heat output and they'd be warm and turn it off. And then it's like, so some education on not only just heat pumps, but like it's something that you can just leave on and just set it to the temperature that you're comfortable with. So I think as pilots and different programs like this occur, taking that into more consideration of like what people are used to and then how this changes, and what education or briefings or information would be required with that. But then on the manufacturer side with the E-gauge was super helpful, just to know how the unit's behaving, know where if there's any improvements needed, and just from the measurement side was really helpful.
No, and that's a great point just in terms of the communication, right? It's a paradigm shift for a lot of folks from, having it like something like a thermostat, which you set and sort of forget, and it's going to do the work for you, as opposed to some of the existing or older technologies where you have to kind of be more active in maintaining your comfort, opening windows, turning valves, maybe plugging in space heaters, things like that. So maybe there's also, it's less to think about and less to worry about. And that is also kind of understanding what that means in terms of like a paradigm shift for people and how they kind of heat or cool their space. So a good point. Did you have something you want to add, Jordan?
Just that, as David said, we're collecting electric use of each of the units, and also space temperature to make sure that we're maintaining the proper temperatures. We're also measuring the electric use on the risers because we're very interested to see what the diversity of these units is, and like the most expensive upgrade a building would need to do electrification typically is upgrading like the wires in the walls and in the buildings and
It's like
the risers.
thicker
Need
conductors.
larger conductors, yeah, exactly. So and that's really expensive. It's cost prohibitive for most buildings, including NYCHA. So we're really interested to see, are all the units always on? Are some of them always off? What does our peak demand look like? Stuff. So we've been gathering that data for about a year now.
And one thing that you mentioned was that in some cases the energy use is going down with these units on the cooling side because they're actually more efficient. Can you speak a little bit to what you've seen?
Yeah, we at one building where we installed the meters haven't been in place. We only installed the meters, I think, for this pilot last October. So we're just getting cooling data now. At another building where we did a similar packaged unit system with a similar efficiency, we saw about a 20% decrease in the cooling usage, and that's a decrease. And it's even more impressive when you consider that not everybody had an AC previously, and now everybody has at least, an AC in every room. So these inverter-driven heat pump units are so much more efficient than a typical off-the-shelf window AC. That you can actually save energy even if you install more of them.
Yeah, and I think also thinking about, people who may have, let's say, the same window AC that they bought 10, 20 years ago, which is going to be even less efficient. So I think there's a lot of conversations around, the grid handling, added, electrification and things like that. But in this case, the newer technology is more efficient. And so, even though more people might have access to it, we may not see a peak rise.
I'd also like to add in that this middle photo here shows a photo of our new windows that we actually worked with a window manufacturer to design a triple pane UPVC window, casement style window that houses the heat pump. It's got a little like custom made.
I didn't even notice that.
Heat pump koozie at the bottom. So it's like airtight, watertight. And so this is like I don't know if there's any building energy nerds in here, but it's a U value of 0.19, which is like a really good insulation of a window. And so we're replacing our old double hung aluminum windows with these. We couple it with the heat pump, and we're really excited to see what impact that has on the energy use even. I think it'll go down even further.
Great. Yeah, I wasn't even aware of that. That's a great addition. So for David and Vince, what are the opportunities sort of beyond this pilot? Where do you see, again, talking about this potentially the opportunity to make a market? Are you all looking at this as an opportunity to bring this to other cities, other places where this type of building topology? What's sort of the outlook of this as a product beyond this initial pilot and hopefully procurement?
Yeah, so definitely multiple opportunities that we've already been discussing with different partners across the country for a similar type pilot that they have interest. So whether it's here in the Northeast and some other states outside of New York, all the way to the West Coast and even in Canada. So lots of interest and lots of opportunities. So we think there's a huge demand, especially with the multifamily, where this product is essentially just another tool in the toolbox when trying to figure out heating and cooling needs for a building, especially multifamily, or even Nan said, for your house. So I think it's mini splits fit where they fit, central AC and AHU fits where it fits, and then these units fit where they fit, and definitely help provide everybody to meet that need, especially that I think I've come to realize how much of a gap in the multifamily market that I didn't realize was there. So we've shown this at AHR, at the AHR Expo the past couple of years, and just the number of people, whether it's a building owner or energy efficiency advocates or even contractors and technicians coming in like, this is a great product. I could use this for X or for Y, or I could use this for a customer, if I have a part that's delayed. So there's multiple uses and cases for this that I see this is creating a whole market in and of itself. And then to add to that, like I mentioned earlier, it's a springboard. So even coming here where we know there's other opportunities, where this technology could be transferred to. It's just a start. We kind of saw it as a stepping stone of technology that could be applied to other products and different installation types. So knowing that is also in the future, it just kind of breeds that continual innovation, especially here with hearing different needs and uses that you all may have in your specific situations and scenarios. And then lastly, too, with the contractors and stuff, having the ability to have a more premium product that's going to create a need for technicians and people to work on these, install these, and even creating training opportunities. So using our distributor partner in Flushing, where we have a showroom and a training center where some of our team members on the central AC side, so we've got 4 technicians who are, I think combined, they've got like 150 years, 120 years of experience in the HVAC industry. And they go out and do training for customers, but they come up here to our training room and providing training opportunities for, one of the recent ones they did was for, I think, a trade school or high school students recently. So providing those opportunities on products like this for installation or maintenance, there's just kind of a whole market and ecosystem just around this type of product that we've seen at Midea.
Yeah, I would say I would definitely echo those points. And credit again to NYCHA when they wrote this solicitation. They did a lot of research, I think, on what the broader market needed, and they wanted this to be a springboard for these technologies to scale more broadly. And we've certainly seen that. The M&V study that we're doing to understand how the residents interact with the system, to get feedback from residents, and to measure their performance is also very helpful for us getting to other customers in other markets. Ultimately, when you look at what it takes to decarbonize, I think we don't have the time and money to do it with long install periods if it takes 5 days per system. We don't have the money to do it if it takes many contractors. If you look at the refrigerant management problem as it pertains to climate, I personally believe fully packaged systems are the only way that we can scale heat pumps without refrigerant leakage causing massive climate problems. And when you do control on a room basis, it's more comfortable for residents because they have more control over which room is which temperature, and you end up using about 20% less energy because of that localized control. And so I do think that this platform can help scale both in helping us meet decarbonization goals and providing better user experiences and comfort and being more energy efficient. And so we're very excited to bring this technology to other areas. And with our first product, we have installs in about 36 different states. So we see broad applicability across the country.
Great, thank you. So we're running down the clock here. Jordan, do you want to just talk a little bit about what's next for this Clean Heat for All program?
Yeah, so right now we are just wrapping up our demonstration phase for Clean Heat for All. So we installed the 72 units, and now we are, one of the manufacturers has completed theirs, and we'll be complete with the other one by the end of the summer. So now we're evaluating the results, sending kind of like punch list items that we've identified, and then getting to like a final product. And from there, we're going to be doing a full building scale up with each of the manufacturers to see how it does through basically like a larger pilot, and go from 12 apartments to 50 apartments and 150 units, and run that for time. And really what we want to do is get our operations staff more comfortable with the units and maintaining them, and kind of figure out what sort of staff resources we'll need in this new sort of distributed heat system future. So that's kind of the upcoming schedule for NYCHA, and we're hoping to have a full building, hopefully in time for this upcoming heating season.
Great. Okay. Well, just a big round of applause for the panel here. It's a wonderful project. I think it's going to be really impactful for residents and for the city in general. So yeah, thank you all.